Welcome to Welcome to Research in Manoa with Stan Osserman. I'm sitting in for Jay, who sounded really, really terrible this morning. So I'm going to do my best to take Jay's place. We kind of look alike, so at least there's a start. Anyway, today on Research in Manoa, we have soon-to-be Dr. Andre Pattantyus, who's going to talk to us a little bit about what he does up in Manoa to kind of look at not so much climate change, but local climate, especially summertime climate with Vog and when we get the Kona winds blowing the Vog towards Oahu and the kind of things that he does to help model that and figure out how to make it better and help us cope with it better. So thanks for being here today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into what you're doing, and then how you ended up here in Hawaii a few years ago and got into what you like to do now.
Sure. Well, I arrived in Hawaii about 5 years ago, and that was just at the time that this whole project was starting to do Vog research. So the project was called the Vog Modeling and Prediction project. And so I came in a couple years later to kind of take over from where we'd started. So there's one aspect where we're kind of trying to figure out what's coming out of the volcano, and then my end is where we're trying to figure out where the emissions are going and how it's going to be affecting people down the line.
Okay. And so you work with SOEST and the Atmospheric Sciences part of the University of Hawaii.
That's correct.
And tell us a little bit about that school and the kind of projects that SOEST works on.
So SOEST stands for the School of Ocean and Environmental Science and Technology. So we're primarily focused on ocean and marine research, waves, currents, marine life, and then environmental projects, maybe soil quality, water quality, and then the atmosphere, so any kinds of storms, rain, temperature trends, and air quality, which is where I come in.
Okay, so the folks at SOEST and the school there work on a lot of different projects. What are some of the other kind of projects that work kind of hand in hand with the ones that you do? So you work a lot with the meteorology folks and...
Right. I mean, the Vog can tie into a lot of things. There's been studies where the Vog has been affecting cattle and plants, so we could tie into that part of the environmental degradation to native species. And then there's the lava flow that we had last year over in Pahoa Town, and so that kind of comes into forestry management and land management types of things. And
overall health, like asthma? And
yeah,
like
overall health. I work a bit with the School of Medicine, so there's a little bit of collaboration and talk between us, yeah.
Okay, so do you actually have to look at, when we talk Vog, it's like volcanic smog, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways that happens. You can have the volcano flowing in the sea, you can have a volcano burning off forest, you can have just the gases coming out of the volcano itself. So tell us a little bit about some of the different ways you'd have to look at it.
Right, so we're looking at stuff coming just straight out of the volcano. So it's mainly water vapor, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide are the three main things. But then there's lots of other, tiny trace things. So that's our focus. But then, as you alluded to, it can go into the ocean, and then that kind of changes the game a lot because it starts reacting with the seawater, and we get H2S, which is very toxic, and I believe a couple of other kind of toxic gases. So that's kind of a big worry if that were to happen near a town. And then if it's burning through forest, then that's pretty much a wildfire type case. So you got a lot of fly ash and things, and maybe other gases being released depending on what it's flowing over.
So as you look at the different scenarios that are going by, do you actually advise the state government or any officials about what to do to mitigate, especially close to the volcano and maybe a volcano national park, and then as you get further out, or do you really just kind of focus on research?
We focus on research. However, our product does get used by the county Department of Health a lot, and also Hawaii County emergency managers. So they don't come to us directly that much, but they do use the products that we develop that were developed. Well, I mean, they were made just for that purpose, so people could utilize that kind of information.
So what kind of model or what kind of product would you give them? Would you give them like a zone with a hot zone and further out with concentrations and then predictive kind of things?
Yeah,
what would it look like?
Yeah, so we put out forecasts kind of similar to weather forecasts that you would see on TV, where we're really interested in how heavy the concentration will be far away from the volcano. So that way, Department of Health would know air quality is going to be really bad, maybe in Puna, so let's not let anybody have a controlled burn that day because that's only going to make it worse. And then the public can also see it and say, maybe I'm not going to go outside in the morning because there's going to be heavy Vog. So that's kind of where we're coming in.
Okay, so in the immediate area, you have pretty well established models that you can give the emergency management folks.
Mm-hmm.
How about when it gets into the atmosphere and it starts moving down the island chain? What kind of things do you do for the other counties and maybe for the state emergency managers?
So for the other counties, our model does cover the entire island chain. So you can see the Vog kind of traveling from volcano all the way up, past Maui into Oahu. And when it starts getting to that, when it starts coming up into the Oahu area, then Guy Hoggy starts noticing it, and he'll start incorporating our product into his forecasts to warn people, that Vog's going to be here, so be careful if you're going to go out and run or planning outdoor activities. And then the National Weather Service is also kind of interested to warn of air quality and Vog approaching.
Okay. Well, we're coming up on a break here, so we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a few seconds with Andre Pattantyus and talk to him a little bit more about Vog.
Aloha, my name is Justine Espiritu, and I co-host Hawaii Farmers Series with Matthew Johnson of Oahu Fresh. We talk about Hawaii's local farmers and their supporters. In order to have a vibrant and sustainable local food system, farmers are always the foundation, but there's so many other people involved in the community that help support those farmers. So we bring those folks onto our show every Thursday at 4 p.m. We get their backstory, their history, find out a little more about them, and we find out why they love what they do and their perspective and their advice on how we can continue to have a dynamic and vibrant and sustainable local food system. So we broadcast live every Thursday at 4 p.m. and you can also catch us on ThinkTech's YouTube channel as well as Alelo 54. So we hope you tune in and join us. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back to Research in Manoa. I'm Stan Osterman sitting in for Jay Fidel, and we have today with us soon to be hopefully Dr. We're keeping our fingers crossed, Dr. Andre Pattantyus, who's doing some research on Vog, and we've got a great background that Zuri picked out for us to show what it looks like when it gets Voggy here in Honolulu. And hopefully it won't get as bad as China. They got it pretty bad over there. But why don't we talk a little bit about how you spent some time on the Big Island last year and some of the specific things you did up there to enhance your work.
Sure. So last July, I went over to the Big Island with a few colleagues to do some research, and we set up some instruments at the volcano and then further downwind in Pahala. And so we were trying to get an idea of how concentrated the plume is close to the vent and then further downwind. And so Pahala is one of the closer communities to the volcano, and that gets affected quite often. So we chose that as a site to study. And so what we did is we set up these instruments that are looking through the atmosphere and detecting both sulfur dioxide gas and then aerosols because we know that the sulfur dioxide eventually becomes aerosols that people breathe in, and then that causes a lot of respiratory distress. So what we found is that the level of aerosols down in Pahala area are quite high if you're looking through the entire lower atmosphere, and it's similar to what you see actually in the park near the Pu'u'o'o vent, which is the one that's been erupting since 1983. Yeah, so that was quite a surprise that it was comparable, and so it gives us an idea of how affected Pahala is, whether or not the Department of Health instruments detect that every day, but it's always there.
Does the temperature of the gas coming out have any effect on the dispersion and how low it stays? Like if it's hotter gases, even though it's bad, does it tend, you have a higher concentration at a higher altitude, and is, I mean, we've got the volcano going off into the ocean and down the hillside, but you've got from sea level to 14,000 feet on the Big Island. Is there like a range in there where these bad gases tend to congregate, or you kind of, if you're at that altitude or that level, they kind of get inversion trapped or whatever and stay, and you got to kind of watch and what are those like?
Yeah, there sure is. So the main vents, the main two vents where all the gases are coming out are at Pu'u'o'o and then at the summit vent in Halemaumau crater. And so Pu'u'o'o is around 800-meter elevation, or what is that, like 1,500 feet, something like that, and then Summit's a little bit higher. So so the gases at that level are pretty high, but then they do get trapped at the inversion, which is about 6,000, 7,000 feet.
Okay.
So up to that level, they're going to be pretty heavy, but then above that, relatively clear. Very little gets through.
Unfortunately, not too many people live above 6,000 feet. So,
Right.
So it's right in that spot where
It
starts to affect people.
Right. Yeah, but a lot of people do live in that in that area below the inversion, like around South Point area in Ocean View. So it is kind of trouble there, and then even upcountry Maui.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Maui and the Big Island, you have a lot of cattle production, not so much down in southern Big Island, but some. You talked about the impact on cattle earlier. What's some of the things that you look at impacting like ranchers and cattle on Maui and the Big Island?
Yeah, so there have been quite a few studies in that area. I don't lead those. Those are more biologists and things. But from what I understand, some cattle have been affected. They're not able to hold nutrients quite as well. But then a bigger issue for the ranchers is their metal fencing is deteriorating because of the sulfuric acid just eats through it. So that's kind of more in my area. So the gases come by and settle on the metal, and then two years later they have to replace their fence, which should last for 15, 20 years.
Even on Maui?
Not so much on Maui, definitely Big Island. But then some native species of plants are really affected by the gas and everything. They're not able to take in what they're supposed to and photosynthesize. So.
Okay. And you guys published a paper recently on some of your work, and can you tell us a little bit about that?
We did. We published a paper in the fall in the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society, and I believe that's open access for the public if they can track it down. And so that's a summary of our project getting started, all the steps that we went through with collaborators to monitor the volcano and start the predictive model. And then there's some initial analysis of the forecast, like how well they were doing against observations. So we have a good idea that the model does a fair job when the concentrations are low, but then when they start spiking in areas, then it's tougher for the model to pick up on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we look at the Big Island and we look at the normal weather patterns, would you say last year was kind of an abnormal weather? Because there wasn't much wind last year.
Absolutely.
So what were the areas affected on the Big Island the worst from the Vog?
So areas that are typically worse affected would be like the Cow District, just southwest of the volcano, because that's where the emissions usually blow from the northeast trade winds. And then also Kona gets affected a lot because the winds kind of wrap around the south point right back in to Kona, so visibility is, you know, not the greatest there, and that's kind of an indication that there's Vog present. But then last year, with the winds being so light and stagnant, there was a lot of air quality problems in Puna area, and even inching up towards Hilo. And I think we had above number cases of Vog up in our area as well, with all the southerly winds that we had from all those storms approaching.
So in your models, does it give like certain thresholds where the health professionals need to start giving out warnings? And like you mentioned, even the folks back here start giving health warnings.
Right. So the Department of Health has thresholds for SO2 that you kind of want to start taking notice if they start exceeding those. And those are 1 hour averages for concentrations. And so we've conveyed that all that data to health professionals as best we can, like the American Lung Association and volunteer organizations, so they can tell all of their base. But then for particulate matter or aerosols, there's a 24-hour thresholds, and so those don't get reached too often, but except for on the Big Island, Kona area and Cow District, yeah.
So, you know, I know that in meteorology you also have like cloud seeding. When you have these particulates actually get up above that 6,000 foot level, or even, I guess even 4,500 feet around here starts to generate clouds and rain. Does it actually increase rainfall, decrease rainfall? Is there acid rain associated with it? You talked about the composition of the gases.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been studies recently where the cloud fields about 1,000 miles west of the Big Island have shown evidence of cloud seeding from the volcano. But locally, that connection hasn't been made too strongly. A paper that we did a couple years ago hinted at that with the passage of Hurricane Flossie. So the emissions seem to have made it into that and increased the amount of lightning through aerosols.
Okay.
So.
We see the graphic up on the screen there. I don't know if you can see it on the monitor. Is that one of yours that you put out?
Right, yeah, that's one of our graphics that we put out, and I believe that is for Hurricane Flossie.
Okay.
Yeah, it has quite the hurricane signature there,
Right.
with that comma shape, yeah. And so that's showing high concentrations of particles getting into the clouds. And so when the gas goes into the cloud, it turns into particles faster because of its interactions with water.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you get lots of smaller particles that should theoretically reduce rainfall, but then increase the cloud lifetime. And through that mechanism, it's able to create lightning through the
Static electricity.
well, the upward and downward motion of the
Gravity.
particles, and so they end up getting charged over time, and then the lightning is the discharge
okay.
of the.
Yeah, we did have quite a bit of lightning last year too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if all of that can be attributed to the volcano, but I'd like to hope at least some of it
Okay.
is, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you talked about, you know, the importance in terms of health and everything, and even to cattle and agriculture. So you talked about maybe doing an app.
Yeah, last year we developed a beta app, phone app for the Vog model, and so this is to get the forecast into everybody's hand, you know, at the push of a button. So you would pick up your phone, open up the app, and be able to see what the model is predicting at the closest point to you, and then you could also look at what the Department of Health is maybe monitoring near you as well, and then from this information you can you know, determine if you want to go outside or stay outside, maybe.
And so is this going to come out of the beta test pretty soon, or do you have any predictability on that?
That's probably a little further down the line. We need to get some people in there and to develop it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of interest from multiple parties.
Okay, so
to
you
move
guys out in
forward.
Dev League and all the places that do all the number crunching and coding and stuff, you need to talk to Andre here and help him with his app, his phone app, so he can put it out there and help people get keep away from their asthma attacks and
Yeah.
keep ahead of things.
Yeah, DevLeague was actually instrumental in getting the beta product together in the first place.
Yeah, there's some smart dudes in there.
Very smart, yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, we're coming up close to another break here, so we're going to take a quick break and be back in a few seconds. Talk to Andre.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen, host of Likeable Science on Think Tech Hawaii. Come join us every Friday at 2 p.m. when I interview interesting scientists about what they do, why they do it, and why we should all care about it. It's a lot of fun to see. We hear, and you can learn interesting stuff. You'll hear all kinds of fascinating science, and we know you'll have a great time. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Mahalo for watching Think Tech Hawaii. We are a channel dedicated to raising public awareness about the importance of technology, energy, diversification, and globalism to the future of Hawaii. We broadcast and stream daily from 1 to 5 every weekday, and we broadcast on Olelo 54 and OC16 TV. All of our shows are archived on thinktechhawaii.com, and we hope to see you there. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Reg Baker, and I'm the host of Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. Business in Hawaii is a program that is positive stories about business in Hawaii. We're tired of hearing the negativity and why it's the wrong place to have a business. We talk about the positive reasons for having a business in Hawaii and how to be successful. We broadcast live every Thursday at 2 o'clock. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on Think Tech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Hey, Stan Osterman here again. Welcome back to my lunch hour. We're here doing research in Manoa and talking to Andre Pattantyus. I only screw up his name once. I gotta do better with my local legislators. I keep screwing their names up bad. But thanks for being here again. And he's from the University of Hawaii, SOEST and Atmospheric Studies, Sciences. And talking a little bit about Vog and some of the things they've got going on. On the break, we were talking a little bit about the U.S. Geological Survey. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how they're interested in your work?
So the USGS are some of our biggest collaborators over at the volcano because they're handling the gases, the gas emissions coming out of the volcano, and they handle security and or warnings and health advisories around the park. But recently, with this activity coming and going on Mauna Loa, they've had interest in potential scenarios of what would happen if that were to erupt. And so they approached me about that, and I haven't quite gotten into it yet because my plate's pretty full. But
So this would be like an outbreak on the flank of Mauna Loa, below the vent up at Volcano National Park, and
no, this is actually at the summit.
and the summit.
Yeah, towards the summit of Mauna Loa.
Okay.
And so, if the volcano were to erupt that high, then
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So there would definitely be effects locally, but then, the emissions could go, as far away as Asia or North America. So.
Because Pu'o'o is about what elevation? 10,000 feet or 9,000?
No.
Not even that high?
Pu'o'o is at about 3,000 maybe, 3,000 feet. So it's pretty low.
So the top of Mauna Loa is closer to 13 or 14,000.
Yeah, between 13 and 14,000 feet.
So that would be what would be the possibilities of that kind? I mean, I know you're not a geologist, but is that being looked at as a potential activity for that volcano?
Well, the USGS is monitoring it very closely, so they have all kinds of instruments on the around the mountain telling them if it's inflating or if lava is moving closer to the surface or deflating.
Yeah.
And so there is some concern there, so they're taking it seriously in that
Okay.
regard.
Because that would potentially put lava back down on the west side of the mountain too.
Right,
potentially.
right, yeah, and I don't think that's happened since the 60s or 70s.
It's been a while.
So yeah, so everybody forgot about it already.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the renewed danger from that as well.
Yeah, Madam Pelly's still a young lady.
Yeah.
She's still got some life in her, so gotta watch that. Yeah, because we actually in my shop we do hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, and we're working with HNEI and one of the local conversion companies that we use, US Hybrid, to make some buses for Volcano National Park. And one of the things that HNEI developed for the buses was a special sensor that would sense the sulfur in the air coming from the volcano up at Volcano National Park. Will shut off the fuel cell because the fuel cell's got platinum in it, which is A, really expensive, and B, very susceptible to being deteriorated by the sulfur. So the first thing the bus does is it shuts off the air intake and shuts off the fuel cell. And then it's supposed to kick in a scrubber that scrubs the sulfur out before it turns it back on to let the vehicle run on cleaner air. So that's one of the things that we do on the Big Island that we have to watch for when the volcano's kicking up the sulfur dioxide.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of interest in trying to figure out how to scrub the air near volcano or in areas that are affected. And lately we've been looking for more natural ways to scrub the air, maybe with plants or things like that, because really right now everybody has like little home remedies, wear gas masks or turn the AC on inside, but not a lot of people have air conditioning in that area because
Yeah.
it's so comfortable.
Yeah,
So
it's also expensive to run air conditioning.
it is.
Yeah,
It is.
especially on the Big Island.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've got some other things going on the Big Island later on this month. You've got the symposium happening later.
Right. There's many researchers who work on Vog and its effects on people and cattle and everything. So one such person is running the symposium, I think, together with the USGS, and so that's going to be January 28th at University of Hawaii at Hilo, and I believe it's going to run all day. So if you're in the area and you have some time, then come on by. And
So do you think they have a website set up, or where can they get more information if they want to check it out? Is it on going to be published in the paper and things like that?
I'm not too sure. It should be published at least locally on the Big Island, and maybe for more information I would call either University of Hawaii Hilo or the USGS, because I know that they're both involved.
I'm sure they have a website that you could tap USGS and look for that. You could probably then put Hilo, and that would do search for Hilo.
Maybe. I mean,
Probably
the
so.
university would definitely know because it's on their schedule now. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great. So as we look at the kind of work you do, and you're doing predictive work, you're working on potentially having an app for phones, is there any kind of, I would go by rules of thumb, like, is there a better place to be or not be? Is there, or what are some of the things that you look for if you don't have really great scientific access to scientific technology to determine, is there any way that the average person can go, hey, under these conditions, I need to be careful, or I need to look out for the condition, the climate, and what's happening around me? What kind of advice could you give to people that live in or near Puna, around the volcano, around Akau side, that you said get impacted heavily by the inversion and things like that? What kind of climate patterns or wind patterns and volcanic eruption scenarios would you say they can kind of look at and go, I need to be ready for it?
I'd say the most basic thing to look for is a reduced visibility. So if the skyline is hazy, if you can't see as far as you could normally on a good clear day, then you should start thinking that maybe this is Vog. And so, and then the thicker it is, the worse it could be. And so you might want to start taking precautions then. Sometimes you'll smell it if it's really strong, but that's probably pretty rare unless you're close to the volcano. But then wind patterns, those would all be very local local things depending on where you were. So maybe know where you are in relation to the volcano, and if the wind's coming anywhere from the volcano, then maybe start
So
worrying
is
or
there
looking
anything
out.
that the Park Service or Big Island Civil Defense puts out, or Emergency Management puts out, that talks about, like, we've had a bigger than normal eruption or smaller? I mean, is there anything that talks about the level of activity that would give you a clue first before you actually saw the VOG or smelled it? And then, you know, what does it smell like? I mean, if you've never been there before, if you're a tourist, what kind of smell would you be looking for?
The USGS is great about providing this kind of information because they want to protect visitors to the national park. So they have a great frequently asked questions section. So what does it smell like? And then what are the hazard levels associated with everything? So I would start there. I think the governor's office also has information on a website about this, and I think we have links to at least the USGS one on the website that we maintain as well at the university. So so the USGS does provide probably the best
Okay.
information, because they definitely cover the volcano, and they do the eruption updates as well daily. So they'll tell you if the emissions are higher or lower, and they can give great guidance on that area.
So probably between checking the USGS eruption updates
Yes.
and then kind of coupling that with the wind patterns. You got a good brisk trade winds, you know, you're probably going to be okay because it'll blow it out of there. But if you got kind of like under 10 knots or 5 knots, then it could just be wrapping around a Kona side, and maybe feel in that area you got to be a little more cautious.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely. The winds are definitely a great identifier, because, you know, they're either blowing towards you or away from you, and I would urge people who are affected to maybe keep a journal of, you know, what the weather's like when you're being affected, because that would help you, you know, in, you know, determining from day to day maybe how you're feeling, and it would definitely help us, you know, if you could translate that data to us somehow and give us an idea. So
Do you have a website or anything that you monitor, or any way people can get in touch with you if they do want to pass data to you?
Yeah, we run the forecasts are available to the public from our website at the university, which is, the URL is pretty long. Don't know it off the top of my head, but if you do a search real quick for VOG Hawaii, we should be the top hit, and you can find a link to my email there.
Great.
And just drop me a line.
Good, and that's how scientists get good information, is from direct feedback from people that are experiencing things. So, yeah, help these guys out, and if you're in the affected areas and you have any kind of predictability clues that you can provide them, that'll help them out and help make them improve their services to the state of Hawaii and help keep everybody safe. So, any final words that you'd like to pass on to the viewers, and talk about your program, and do you need more students, recruits? We can recruit for UH. Need volleyball players at your?
Well, we could always use volunteer support, especially on the Big Island, because we go over there to do research a lot, and if we have people who are really interested and committed to help us, that would be great. People who, as you mentioned, collect data for us, that would be another great help. Yeah, I don't know, just if you find VOG to be important to you, then contact your you know, government representatives locally, and tell them as much, and, you know, that we need funding to continue what we're doing, because that's another difficulty now.
Well, I know folks, especially folks that have upper respiratory issues, this stuff is really life or death. I mean, it's really important. So
Yeah.
Thanks for all the work that you guys do up there, helping out the medical, you know, community and the citizens of Hawaii. And get back with DevLeague and get that app rolling, and make it more available to folks. That'd be awesome. But we appreciate the help. We appreciate you being on today. So good luck with your PhD studies and your academics. And so, Andre, thanks for being here, and thanks for joining us today. And hopefully Jay will be feeling better next week, and he can be back on research in Manoa. But thanks for being here and good luck in the future. Aloha.
All right, aloha, thank you.